All right. Welcome back, everybody. It's Monday night. It is the Ascended podcast. I can't even tell you what episode. I don't know if we should start numbering these, maybe, or if we need to just. I like the Joe Rogan style, just assigning like a 378, or we could just do per title or something like that. But either way, we got a cool episode for you tonight. Anthony, it's been probably 2 to 3 weeks, but we've been working a lot, I know, on the Altura app, which is now live on the App Store. Huge win there. We're still working on getting Nova's app under Altura AI published. That'll be the name the day it drops. We'll probably change it to Nova once our copyright and trademark information comes through as we grow. But a lot of stuff in the works still. It's been busy, but we're ready to get back into the content stuff. How are you, Anthony? How's life been?
Life's been good. A lot of opportunities heading our way. A lot of things accomplished in the past couple weeks since we spoke last on the podcast. I'll just reiterate, huge win too to have Altura live on the App Store now. One thing I'll note about that though, just so I'm not saying the same thing, is that Nova actually is usable through Altura as well. So that's kind of a win for Nova either way, because users now can access Nova to use for their everyday use, helping build whatever it is they're building, manage whatever it is they need to manage, just by using the Altura app as well. So you can have access to both in that way. So that's absolutely a win for us, and we're just continually making changes here, and it's been pretty fun to work and see things grow.
It sure has been. It's been a journey, and it's like, obviously trying to bootstrap a company to this size, and especially I would say two companies really, because Nova and Altura are two separate deals that take up a lot of time and space. But working those together has been extremely rewarding. Well, it's also been kind of a nightmare sometimes, just going through the admin and growing things. We got a lot of like things in the works that we're not going to necessarily talk about until they're finished, but I can tell you it is crazy. I'm going to share my screen here real quick just to show everybody. Altura is live, and what Anthony was talking about here is you can actually go over now into Nova, and you can use the Nova chat inside of Altura. So if you guys want to ask questions, if you want to have an experience with a chat, feel free to use Nova right here. It's our AI, obviously privacy centered, protecting your data. We're not doing multi-billion-dollar partnerships with, Amazon or Microsoft like ChatGPT, Anthropic are. So your data stays in a private box, basically behind our walls, where nobody else is using that to get a hold of you or to bid on your data or to sell you things that are going to invade your privacy. That is what we stand for. That is Nova, and we're looking forward to the future making that happen. So again, I've just been you can see some of the test prompts I've been putting in and stuff, and the scheduling stuff that you can do on the desktop version here. But Altura is looking pretty awesome when you get into it. I'm just going to let you guys go to the link on alturasociety.com and check it out. If you're watching this episode on Spotify or YouTube or Rumble, whatever it may be, it should be in the description down below. Go ahead, check it out, and we will look forward to seeing you guys inside in the live chat. I'll personally be there. Anthony will be there, and we can catch up and talk business.
Yes, sir.
So where are we tonight? And to ask that, we have to ask, where's the world in the state of AI right now? Obviously, AI is an exponential curve. Still, to the best of my knowledge, I don't think it's linear. I think we are dramatically seeing huge changes week by week, right? It seems to mainly be a race between Claude and Anthropic at the front. And then you have companies like ours that are just getting off the ground, that are looking to compete with them. And then you have all these other like sub products, right, that can search the web, that can edit videos, that can, do your taxes for you, right, all over the place. And you're seeing these crazy leaps and bounds every single week. And it's just kind of overwhelming, I feel like sometimes. So I personally use AI a lot, obviously, in addition to testing our own and making Nova better, making it more secure, making sure conversations are kept safe. But in this process, I've started to do a lot of independent research on Claude, on ChatGPT, on Grok, on some of the biggest names in the space, and how they actually conduct their business as entrepreneurs, not just as tech, right? Not just the hard or software powering their AI, but what kind of ship they run. And I've started to see a lot more videos on this recently. And I think it actually is probably the most important thing we could talk about in today's day and age, the safety of companies, and especially a company that can control the way you think, right? The outputs that happen in a chat GPT conversation, in a Claude, in a Grok chat, determine the ways that you guys think, what patterns of thought enter your brain, and therefore what reinforcement or maybe counteraction you have against or for the things you decide to do with your life. I think most of us we kind of undervalue how drastic of a sway we have from the AI that we talk to. And that's why it's so important to break down these different companies and talk about whether or not we believe truly that they stand for the values that they say they do. So, Anthony, I've been excited for this episode for a while. Are you ready to talk AI and tech tonight?
Always, man. Always. That's what we're here for. Let's get into it.
And thank you to all our clippers that helped cut this up too. We'll see you in the content clipping side of things to pay you guys for your clips. Of course, it's been a rough road on that too. If you guys are having any issues with that, just hit us up in the live chat and we'll try to resolve things there. So welcome to, again, AI in 2020, mid 2026 now. This is where we're at. Let's give a quick synopsis of what's happened, generally speaking, if you guys are relatively new to AI. So OpenAI, right? We talked about this on prior episodes. They deleted their safety team in May of 2024, about 2 years ago, right? 3 weeks after they got rid of these safety personnel, they signed $1 billion contract with the Pentagon. Nobody covered it. That was not talked about.
Yeah, I mean, Anthropic did the same thing in November as well. They kind of quietly updated their usage policy to allow military intelligence work, kind of just like in a one blog post fashion, right? Not really a press release, something that the public would be that knowledgeable on or have seen.
And then you have Google, right, who folded DeepMind's ethics board into the main organization in 2023. The board had veto power over weapons applications. Now it doesn't.
Yeah, so I think that's all to set up that today we're going to walk through exactly what these companies told you they would do and versus what they're actually doing, how we've kind of seen repeating patterns and what that means for you and your daily use with some of these tools that you may or may not already be using. And also why, none of the reporters whose paychecks depend on access are covering it. So a little bit of, not really conspiracy even, it's just kind of, we're talking the truth as we see it. So should be a good subject tonight.
Once again, I'm Caleb Schulke.
Anthony Para.
And this is the Ascended Podcast. So, Anthony, go back on what you just said. Set the table here. So what did OpenAI's super alignment team actually do? And what happened to it?
Yeah, I might butcher their names as I have in previous podcasts as well. But super alignment as an idea was launched in July of 2023. Ilya Sutskever, and Jan.
Ilya Sutskever.
In any case, and Jan Like ran it. OpenAI publicly committed 20% of their compute to it. So the mission was to solve alignment for superhuman AI within 4 years originally, but that's kind of the beginning there. Yeah.
How do we come up with superhuman AI, and how can we do it quickly and beat the competition within 4 years? 20% of their compute, right? That's a hard number. That's a public commitment that they made to dedicate to get to this milestone.
Yeah, it is a hard number, and I can't imagine the pressure felt by the public for that, for sure, for it being such a public commitment. And kind of as a result of that, Ilya ended up resigning in May of 2024. Jan ended up resigning in May of 17th of the same year. I think it was this year, actually. The team was dissolved either way that same week. Like posted on Twitter on that, and she said, I'm going to read a quote here. Safety culture and processes have taken a backseat to shiny products, end quote.
Yeah, that was actually, they both resigned in May of 24, by the way. This was all the timeline, right, of this AI kind of public announcement and journey too. But the question really, right, like Anthony said, they never really delivered their promise. So the question isn't whether they lied, in my opinion. The question is, who did they lie to? The biggest company in AI, arguably, in my opinion, I'm sure many of yours, most powerful, lethal, dangerous, world-changing technology to ever exist in humankind history, being led by a company that's lying to the public. They lied to the public. They lied to the regulators in the Senate hearings. And based on Likey's statement, I think it's Jan Likey, not Jan. I think
I knew I would
they're
butcher.
European. They lied to their own safety team. That's crazy. And again, these people are known as like the godparents of AI, the ones that we just named here. So their word is very credible here. We're not just taking this with like a grain of salt. These people know more than the average engineer, like wavelengths above them of information. They've been doing this since the 70s, I think, a lot of these people. So take that seriously. That is a drastic failure on the inside of OpenAI.
Yeah, absolutely. And then 3 weeks after the team ended up dissolving in May of 24, they announced the partnership with Anduril, defense contractor. If you're not familiar with what that company does, so we're basically now entering the realm of autonomous weapon systems.
Yeah, and again, if you guys aren't familiar, Anthony, why don't you walk them through the Anduril deal and what happened with that specifically?
Yeah, so a few months later, about half a year after the team dissolves, we're in December 2024. OpenAI partners with Anduril to deploy AI for what they said counter unmanned aircraft systems. So Anduril builds Lattice, which is autonomous targeting software. OpenAI's models are now in that pipeline, essentially is what happened.
Yeah, and OpenAI's usage policy used to explicitly ban military use.
Yep.
When did that change?
Yeah, well, you might have said that rhetorically, but January 2024 is when that changed. They quietly removed the words military and warfare from the prohibited uses page. Once again, no announcement, just like any other company. So The Intercept caught it.
So basically, they told the public, right? Our AI is, and remember, guys, if you were here for the podcast about the initial journey of OpenAI, they were for the common good. They were for bringing artificial intelligence to the world. Elon Musk was part of this team too. It was a nonprofit. Then it was a for-profit capped, and then it was a for-profit. And then they slipped the slope a little more, and they said, you know what, we are gonna participate in some of these defense usages, the ones we said you guys as standard users shouldn't do. We're just gonna change those terms and conditions because now it's actually benefiting us. So again, the timeline is remove the military ban in January, dissolve the safety team in May, sign the weapons contract in December. That's not drift, guys. That's not like just things happening. That was actually what I would say their plan from the start.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to see any other perspective aside from it being deliberate, right? And what else seems to be deliberate too is the fact that nobody at the big news names, right, the Times, the Journal, or The Verge ran even a single piece connecting those three events.
Why?
I would say because they need access. I mean, if you publish that timeline, you don't get, to the next Sam Altman interview. You don't get the next big name in the industry to come on your magazine, right?
Yeah, and that's the entire problem with press and tech press, and specifically these journalists that covered the event. They're not journalists. They are like court stenographers. They're just recording what happens. They're not really getting deep in and driving opinions on this stuff.
Yeah, that's correct.
So where does this take us, right? We need to talk about other companies too. Like, I need to show you guys the bigger picture. And it's not just OpenAI. I don't want to just be throwing, darts at OpenAI, easy shots we could take. OpenAI is clearly slipping in the public appeal, and they're losing people because of safety and privacy. We could attack them all day and show you how Nova is outperforming them on privacy and safety and security of your chats. We're not going to do that. So we need to diversify. I want to talk about the one everybody's talking about today, which is Anthropic, or more importantly, you guys would know them as Claude. Anthropic was supposed to be the adults in the room, right? We said that, remember the other podcast, a lot of Anthropic's initial team, their CEO they worked for OpenAI. They left because of ethical concerns they had with the direction of the company. And they were founded by, again, people who left because they just felt that OpenAI wasn't safe enough. For those of you that didn't watch the episode, Anthony, can you run them through kind of what happened with that again?
Yeah, kind of ironic the way that ended, right? Or I guess started. But anyway, so it was November of 2024, where Anthropic ended up updating their usage policy to allow what they call, or called at the time, legally authorized national security customers. So that's kind of just a nice way of wrapping defense contractors, right? But that in particular includes the NSA, the Pentagon, and intelligence agencies as well.
And they got how much from Amazon?
A $4 billion initial investment, and then another $4 billion in November. So $8 billion in total from Amazon, plus $2 billion from Google after this fact.
And late 2024 going into 2025 is when we really start to get to this point, right, of like AI, the industry, tech is just booming. NVIDIA is starting to pop off. Everyone's talking about tech going crazy because people are just pouring money in. And Amazon, right, they're now massive. They're probably the biggest partner of Anthropic right now. I keep hearing about deals they're doing every day. And so a company, again, founded on the premise that AI safety required independence from big tech, which is Nova's promise. This was Anthropic's promise. They were now structurally dependent from almost day one on two of the largest cloud providers on Earth.
Yeah. And Amazon now has AWS contracts with the CIA. So it's the same Claude models you use to write emails are being deployed in classified environments through AWS GovCloud.
So to all of you guys that say AI is like, it's safe, it's secure. Just think about that. Think about the people that have access to the back doors of the chats that you're logging your most sensitive information to. Did Anthropic disclose that, what you just said, to their users?
Yeah, no, not at all. It's in the policy if you read it. I mean, who reads that though, right? The fine print. But there was no email, no banner, no notification on your phone, nothing like that you would have actually noticed.
And what was Dario Amade's public position on this? He's the CEO.
Yeah, for those that don't know, he wrote an essay in October of 2024 called Machines of Loving Grace. He argues in that essay that AI should be deployed by democracies for national security purposes to prevent authoritarian regimes from getting there first.
And yeah, that's a coherent argument, but I don't think that's wrong on its face, right? That's the opposite of what they promised people they were going to be sold as. So like, it's fine as a concept, right? But we're not attacking what they were trying to do with defense. We're attacking the fact that you say one thing and you're almost immediately being a hypocrite and flipping the other way. How do you expect the public, when they find out about these things, to want to continue pouring their deepest information into your models and inside of your servers?
Yeah, I mean, that's completely correct. The pitch in 2021 was originally we're the safety lab, and it's kind of flipped on its head now in 2025, going into 2026 now, that we're a defense contractor with a chatbot for available use for the public.
And yeah, I don't want to be a hypocrite either. I'll just like tangent on this before we go deeper. We're in the process. We'd love to get some government grants to try to work on research and to complete projects, but that's different from what Anthropic or ChatGPT said they were trying to do, and flipping to basically make, obviously we've heard recently the debate on autonomous weapon systems. They want AI to essentially be able to decide who lives or dies in a lot of cases and make that call. And I think in my personal opinion, it's a little ignorant of the fact that these companies aren't as developed as they say they are. And you're trusting a premature technology to be able to decide what happens with people's lives. And again, the progression of what Anthony and I have said here it's not wrong to, work with the government, right? We obviously, Anthony and I have both done that. That's perfectly fine. It is wrong though, to use the position of we are challenging big tech. We are challenging Big Brother, whatever it is, right? And we are protecting people's privacy. And then immediately, almost without telling them, while standing on that position, going and doing something that's a complete 180 of that. That is not something that you should take pride in or just try to sweep under the rug when you go run ads on the Super Bowl to tell people to download your AI, which we all saw, right? And the constitutional AI framework that they publish papers about The one that's supposed to make Claude refuse harmful requests or prompts from their users. Does that framework apply to the government deployments?
That's a great question. And from all we can tell, right, in independent research, that's kind of the question no one's really asked them on the record. They might have off record, right? But for on record, we haven't seen anything about it. The classified versions are almost certainly tuned differently, though. Different system prompts, different refusal thresholds, possibly even different weights entirely, tailored specifically for government use.
Yeah. And so when a researcher basically publishes a paper saying that Claude refused to help with bioweapon synthesis, the paper is about the consumer model. It tells you nothing about what the government version does. And again, you guys, I would say the average person is not thinking that way with most things. I think that most of you guys would understand the difference between this promise that they failed to keep. If you also understand that there's more going on with like underneath the fine print than what they give off. They're not, you have Sonnet, you have, I forgot what the other one was, Maximus or whatever that they were testing, but having other models undisclosed that they're developing specifically that people can't have access to because they don't trust you with it. And then saying that they stand for universal, use of AI and the development and experience of it is kind of just like rubbing me the wrong way a little bit. And that's kind of why I feel the way I do about this.
Yeah, I don't think that people really, we talked about this in previous podcasts too, but I don't think people really understand the difference between like what massive corporations and what the government's using AI for is and what consumers are using AI for. I mean, we talked about largely the reason that, ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever LLM you're using sounds kind of like elevator music would, in a sense, if your chatbot could have a genre for its tone of voice, is because like that's not where the money's getting spent for development. Like it's just trying to keep things as neutral as possible to keep the most amount of people satisfied with the product, right? It's not tailored for you because it's being tailored for the people with the money, you know what I mean? Which is, in this case, for tonight's subject, the government. And
I call that Disneylanding it, like when you basically have to create an experience that is like there to make everyone feel like they love this thing, right? And then you end up getting this like kind of dumbed down, you almost feel sad for it, like version of a product that's just, it's just like too basic, right? And then it doesn't have personality or edge or any of the things that like we build with Novo, right? Just because you try to serve everybody, you end up serving nobody.
Yeah. And to be clear too, Anthropic is never actually, Anthropic or really any other, AI giant that we've talked about tonight has ever clarified that distinction publicly either.
Yeah. And that's why this is so important to talk about tonight, guys. And if you're not paying attention to this, AI is going to change your life one day. It's going to replace your job. It's going to determine whether or not you graduate from school. It's going to put maybe your future spouse in front of you on a dating app. AI is everywhere in our life. And if you don't start to understand these things, and more importantly, who's actually holding the weights and the biases that determine these decisions in your life that feel yours, that is the first way to give up your freedom, probably the easiest way to give up your freedom before any other way that you're seeing on the news or anything like that. So you need to be paying attention to this stuff. We have to switch though. We can't talk about this all night, right? So let's talk about like the training data. So what did the New York Times, Anthony, lawsuit actually allege with this?
Yeah, so this one was filed in December of 2023. The Times alleged OpenAI copied millions of their articles without permission. They included exhibits showing GPT-4, which was one of the most modern one at the time, reproducing Times articles nearly verbatim when prompted to.
Nearly verbatim, meaning what? Like percentage-wise?
Sorry, I just got a notification, but meaning pretty much that some examples were 99% identical to the original article, paragraph for paragraph, just kind of pretty much pasting.
So GPT-4. So New York Times, just to clarify, they brought a lawsuit against ChatGPT 4.0 because it was writing articles that were 99% identical to New York Times personal journalist's work. Yeah, that's not even a great 99% is like if your college professor or whatever said, "Hey, you got 99% of this paper is plagiarized." That's not slight. That's reproduction. That's you cheated. That's 100% wrong, in my opinion.
Yeah, their way around it, I mean, or defense for that case is fair use under transformative purpose is what it's called. They argued that training is transformative even if the output isn't.
So, what's the status of this case then?
Yeah, discovery seems to be ongoing as of early 2026. OpenAI tried to get it dismissed twice, both motions denied, so it's heading towards trial at this point.
And it's not just the New York Times guys. Like, who else has sued, Anthony?
Yeah, Getty Images sued Stability AI. Authors Guild sued OpenAI. Sarah Silverman sued Meta. The Center for Investigative Reporting sued OpenAI in June of 2024. There are at least 15 active suits against these companies.
Nice. Now, the interesting one I think is Meta here. They got caught using LibGen specifically. We'll kind of walk through that, Anthony. I know you have that information.
Yeah, so court filings unsealed in January of 2025, which basically showed Meta engineers internally discussing using Library Genesis, or LibGen is the acronym for that, or the shortened version, which is basically just a pirated book repository. So Zuckerberg personally approved it according to the documents. Literal, just copying, just pirated books.
Billionaire Mark Zuckerberg personally approved using a pirated book repository to train Llama.
Yep. The internal Slack messages are in the court record as well. One engineer wrote, torrenting from a corporate laptop doesn't feel right.
And you know what? Fuck them. They still did it anyway. That's like,
they did
like it's okay. Yeah. It doesn't feel right. Still did it. Like, doesn't matter.
They did it anyway, and Llama is now the most widely deployed open weight model in the world.
Yeah, we were even training off it for a while too. It's just like, there's information, and then there's like stealing other people's work, right? The whole point of AI isn't to steal work. It's not to steal value from human beings. It's to expand on it, and it's to help reasoning and understanding of that information. And so every company that's building on Llama right now, that's using Llama's model and calling it their own or wrapping it in some other tool, is building on a foundation of acknowledged piracy. That's not an allegation, guys. That's on the discovery record in court.
Correct. Yep. So, and the irony about that is, if you or I went to download those same books via the same method, we would definitely get a DMCA notice. I mean, Meta did it at industrial scale, and the response for them is a civil suit that'll settle for probably less than they made in a single quarter. Just
because if you're Mark Zuckerberg, you can steal. Yeah, that's the asymmetry. The penalty here for stealing as an individual is criminal. You guys see this all the time in politics now. Like, the penalty for stealing as a corporation, as a massive entity, is a line item, is a deduction for legal fees or restitution or whatever. But then, you know what? No double jeopardy. You're fine. Whatever benefit you get from that, you get to keep.
Yep.
So let's talk about the man, the myth, the legend, Sammy Altman. What happened with his testimony before this started in May 2023, and how did this really happen?
Yeah, so basically what went down is that he sat in front of the Judiciary Committee and asked to be regulated. Said the government should create a licensing regime for frontier AI models.
Which, guys, that sounds responsible.
Yeah, it sounds responsible, right? But what it actually does is create a moat. And what I mean by that is that if you need a federal license to train a model above a certain compute threshold, the only companies that can afford the compliance overhead are the ones that already exist.
So OpenAI,
yeah,
Anthropic, Google, Meta.
Yep. Every open source project, every university lab, every startup gets knocked out. The licensing regime doesn't make AI safer. In this case, I mean, the point of this was to make the existing oligopoly. I never say that one right. Basically, just to make those 4 big names permanent, the ones that are at the top.
And that is how that was probably arguably one of the most important decisions a human could have ever made in a legal determination. If you lock in 4 companies to have only them the resources to build AI in the United States, then you're essentially locking everyone out from developing, and therefore you control the flow of AI market growth and therefore revenue on the most important technology humans will ever use. And that is such a massive decision. I don't think most people watching this really understand that. And again, like with what we said, the EU, their AI Act basically does and has done roughly this. So break that down too.
Yeah, the EU's AI Act passed in 2024 basically has a tiered system. The highest tier triggers at 10 to the 25th FLOPs, flops of training compute. So only the big labs hit that threshold. They wrote the rules, so the rules apply to everyone except the people who can afford to comply.
And who lobbied for that threshold?
OpenAI and Google both submitted documents during the drafting. The threshold matches almost exactly the compute used to train GPT-4 and Gemini.
That's very convenient.
Yeah, it's super convenient. It's almost like that was planned.
Yeah, and it's shady at this level, guys. When you're talking about billions of dollars on the table, you're going to have sucker punches thrown. And in the US, the executive order Biden signed in October 2023 used the same exact threshold. Trump rescinded that order in January 2025, but the framework is still being pushed at the state level.
Yep. California SB 1047 was vetoed by Newsom in September of 2024, specifically because it would have entrenched the big labs. He cited that in the veto letter.
Which that veto letter is one of the few times a politician has publicly named the regulatory capture problem at all.
Yeah, and the labs kind of hated him for that. Anthropic publicly supported the bill. OpenAI was officially neutral, but their head of policy lobbied for it privately.
So when Sam Altman says he wants to be regulated, right, he wants to be looked over, basically. What he means is that he wants regulations that regulate everyone, that prevent anyone else from competing at him. He wants to lock in his head start and make the climb up the stairs to get to his level much more difficult.
That's pretty much how the game's played.
Yeah. So here we are. We've successfully succeeded at fear-mongering you, depressing you, and giving you anxiety. Maybe also pissing you off about ChatGPT, which kind of is the goal here. But we need to get practical. Living in a state of fear or anxiousness really about these problems is not going to change your future, your life. So somebody listening, you, right now, you're using ChatGPT every day. Maybe you're using Grok, whatever it is. What do you need to know here?
I would say most importantly, the first thing, I guess, would be you need to know that everything you type into a consumer AI product is training data, is being treated as training data, rather, unless you've explicitly opted out. So everything you say is getting saved, used to make the model better. And something else you should know about that in particular is that the opt-out option does not apply retroactively. So if you don't want your data to be stored and saved for that purpose, you have to opt out before you use it.
So you're a ChatGPT user. Where is the opt-out for ChatGPT that users can find?
I've got it pulled up here. The flow for that would be settings, data controls, turn off, improve the model for everyone. And it's kind of marketing, really, in the way they phrase that. But for Claude, it's on by default. Off, it's on by, yeah. So Anthropic doesn't train on consumer chats unless you flag for review. For Gemini, it's on by default and buried 3 menus deep.
Classic Google. What about API usage? What if you want to use them to build your own business?
Yeah, API usage is generally not used for training across all 3. That's the enterprise tier. If you're a developer, though, use the API instead of the consumer app.
Okay. So second thing, What should people know about hallucination rates?
The labs publish benchmarks that show low hallucination rates on curated test sets. So real world rates are much higher. A Stanford study from 2024 found legal AI tools hallucinated on between 17 and 33% of legal queries.
So I have a 1 in 3 chance of my AI lawyer just making stuff up to help my case,
Not
basically.
only is that correct, but also the tests are curated, right? So that they're asking you things, obviously, that are going to give you a better percentage than that. So they're lying about the studies.
And guess what? The tools were marked as 100% accurate. Good to
Yep.
go. Ship them
Yep.
out the door. Let's get those out. Let's get those on production.
Yep, they were marked as accurate. Lewis and Westlaw both got cited in the study.
Nice. Love big money. And the third thing, okay? So what about the energy and like the water cost of all this, the environmental
Yeah.
side?
Yeah, it's a big concern, especially in some of the parts of the state I live in right now. But a single GPT-4 query uses roughly 10 times the energy of a Google search. Traditionally, if you ask it a question in Google versus ChatGPT, 10 times the amount of energy. Data centers in Arizona are using millions of gallons of water per day for cooling. That's just Arizona, millions of gallons in just Arizona. Microsoft's water consumption went up 34% in 2022, specifically because of AI workloads.
I think I heard like 5 million gallons of water are used for one facility per day, which is insane. It's just that could feed livestock. It could feed humans, right? It could power. It could power, great power, right? All these things, and all we're doing is creating like memes and stupid slop videos with them, and it's just like it's ridiculous, right? And that gets passed on to local communities. It's not like, oh, we're building the data center, we're going to come bring a bunch of jobs to your city. It's we're going to go build a data center in Abilene, Texas, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to raise, and that's going to affect the utility rates for everybody else that's a consumer living here. And you guys are going to have to pay more rates because we need to upgrade our utility. And most of our power has to get funneled to the AI server farm, basically, that's down the road from you. God knows what levels of 5G radiation, or honestly just chemicals in general, or heat pollution is coming off that thing.
Yeah, they're not friendly to local communities at all. I mean, they kind of pose it as like, oh, we're creating jobs, right? But I mean, accidents in the workplace are going up because these are new construction. In particular, like the housing economy is crazy in these cities that are going up. You see it everywhere. Abilene, Texas, in particular, the one you mentioned. It's reported that some of those, don't quote me on this, right? But what I understand about that situation in particular for housing there is that some of the workers that are getting sent out there from other places in the U.S. are getting paid stipends for living that are like double what rent or a mortgage actually costs in that town. And so therefore, like the landlords are kind of catching on to this, right? And people building new construction are catching on to the fact that they could be charging double. And so then they start charging double, and then you bring an influx of people in to work on the center. So now everything that exists is being bought out by people that couldn't care less anyway, because they get a stipend for it. And the people that actually have to move to Abilene or that are trying to relocate or do whatever are stuck paying double what they would have paid, just a year ago. So a lot of downstream effects that they're not really considering.
Yeah, hey, you work for the tech overlords that want to destroy the planet, that are paying you massive salaries to come work in Abilene, Texas, to rent out apartments there, and then landlords see that, and Anthony's living there, his rent's going up, right? And he's still making the same money, right? Because sure, development is happening, but really, what development means in most of these cases is tech centers are being built. Because of that, the money from it pays for workers that work there that also probably, clearly are supporting a company that doesn't give a shit, are outpricing people that live there, and they're really just competing with the townspeople. They're not like building, new things. Sure, there's a little bit of tax money made and stuff. There's actually no property taxes in Texas too. Or there's high property taxes. There's no state income tax. So the only thing you get is the property tax. And so they're not like contributing their fair share. Trust me. I think I saw the stats, and like a massive company. I know, like Tesla, for instance, is headquartered in Texas, and they paid zero in income tax last year. Zero. They didn't pay any income tax, and it's just like there's definitely ways for these people to promise economic incentive, but what they mean is we're going to economically develop a $50 million facility, and then you guys are going to pay for the utility cost of it. It's not evenly distributed, is what I'm saying.
Yep, it gets passed on to local communities for sure. So yeah, I mean the lab pays for the compute, the town pays for the grid upgrade, and the depleted aquifer for sure.
Yeah. Oh, light's going up. Light's really twitchy. So finally, fourth, right? What's the practical advice if you had to give it to the user listening on what model they should actually use?
Yeah, so for privacy, if that's your concern, which it should be, run a local model. Some options would be Llama 3 or Mistral, or do that on your own hardware if possible. For accuracy on factual work, always verify with primary sources, regardless of which model you use. That's just kind of standard practice. If you're into coding, the differences between the top three are smaller than the marketing suggests, so wouldn't worry too much about that.
Yeah. And don't pay for ChatGPT Plus if you're using it twice a week. Don't give them your money. Actually, you're helping fight ChatGPT if you use it and you don't pay them, because then you're using their compute and their servers. Sure, you're giving them some training data, but if you're asking the same question as everyone else, screw them. I mean, just using them for that. Otherwise, if it's something you do care about, please use Nova, right? Use Nova.live. That's our domain, and try us out, because everything's going to stay internal with that. OpenAI, Microsoft, Google, right? They're not getting your data to build their playing card profile on you and sell that to big tech. So don't give them that if if you're just a regular person.
Yeah, don't pay for any of them. Really, would be my advice if you're just a casual user. The free tiers are pretty much sufficient for most people. The average everyday person who's not coding or doing extraneous amounts of work, or maybe a college student who needs help with AI. I mean, it's good enough for what you're working with, right? The labs want you to be on the paid tier so they can tell investors that their revenue is growing. It's more for them.
So, Anthony, big picture, what's the thing you want people to walk away with here?
I'd say that the big thing would be the AI safety conversation. It's kind of been captured by the people building the unsafe systems at this point. When OpenAI talks about existential risk from superintelligence by 2020 or 2050, rather, they're using that conversation to distract you from the documented harms of their products in 2026. So,
which are what specifically?
I mean, things like mass copyright infringement, energy and water consumption with no community benefit, job displacement in writing, illustration, translation, customer service, deepfake enabled fraud and harassment, regulatory capture that locks in the incumbents. I mean, the list kind of goes on.
And none of those, right, are speculative. All of those are actually happening right now as I'm speaking.
Yep, right now. Those things are hindering people's lives, like right now, and they're kind of trying to make the topic of discussion be about the future, right? But these things are currently happening, and they're all documented. Unfortunately, all ignored by the same labs publishing essays about how AI might destroy humanity in 30 years. That's kind of my point.
Yeah, because you can fearmonger somebody 30 years out. They're not going to look at the less extinction event happening now if they have something much bigger to talk about that's coming, right? It kind of keep them interested in the it could always be worse thing, right? And they'll never complain to the fact that they do something. And my addition to that list is really just what we've talked about. My main point here tonight is the trust problem. These companies have built consumer relationships on the premise that they were the responsible ones. I mean, they lied. OpenAI was a nonprofit. Anthropic was the safety lab that broke away from them. Google had "Don't be evil" on their wall. And all three of those identities were just to win you over, just marketing.
Yep. And the version of the company that signs the defense contract is the real version. The version that publishes the safety paper is the press release. There's a big difference between the two.
What do you want from regulators that isn't capture?
I would say three things. One, mandatory disclosure of training data sources. Two, opt-in, not opt-out for consumer data being used in training. And three, no licensing regimes that scale by compute. So if you want to regulate by harm, not by capability.
Okay.
I think that makes sense. I don't see why that wasn't. I mean, we know why that wasn't thought of to begin with, but at this point, it makes more sense.
Yeah. So again, disclose who you're actually training on and what information you're collecting in ways that people genuinely understand. Second, allow them to opt in and opt out easily and easier of the things that you do use, so you can let them protect their own privacy. And third, don't license regimes that scale by just having more GPUs, and then you could lock down the GPU market with NVIDIA. That is a monopoly waiting to happen. And again, just we need to focus on not controlling the competition, because that allows, like Anthony said earlier, an oligarchy of companies. We need to give them the ability to be more transparent about the way that they are competing. And that, I think, would help fix the problem. If people are gonna, for some reason, still use Claude, if they're gonna still find a reason to use OpenAI after this podcast, then at least let them control their data. Sam Altman, if you're listening to this at some point, this is what my message to you would be. What about from users? What do you want from them? What would you say?
Yeah, I would just say, like, my biggest piece of feedback for users would just be to stop treating these tools as oracles, right? I mean, they're nothing more really than just text predictors, and they happen to have very good marketing departments. So every time you use it, verify everything, because it does hallucinate. It does, like we said, at least in some cases, 1/3 of the time. Run local where you can, and stop giving them your private information. That's the most important.
Yeah, and I'll add one too. Stop letting the labs frame the debate. When Sam Altman goes on the podcast and he talks about AGI in 2027, he thinks AI is going to kill us all, right? The right response isn't to argue about, oh, actually, it's 2028 or it's 2026. That means nothing. The right response is to ask, why did you delete your safety team? Why have people on your team committed suicide under suspicious cause? And why have you signed a weapons contract last year after starting with it immediately and stating explicitly that you don't want it used for that purpose? Why the switch up?
Yeah, I mean, that's the question that that's the question of the day, man.
That's why we have to talk about it. So that's the episode, guys. If it was useful at all, if you learned something here, if you take AI seriously now more a little bit, share this. Just please invite someone to the movement, and help send it to somebody that needs to know, that uses it every day, that doesn't understand the levels of information they're dumping into ChatGPT, that will regret it when these digital profiles that Big Brother's making, big companies, big tech, come out and have a massive impact on our life. And the people that don't really think any of this.
Yeah, I mean, sources for everything we cited, we'll put them in the show notes as well. I mean, we don't even really need to. You can kind of Google it yourself too. But all the court filing stuff I talked about, New York Times lawsuit exhibits, the article I mentioned on the policy exchange, threads from Yan or Likey, however you say her name, Newsom's veto letter on SB 1047. Those are all things that you can and probably should, if you're interested in this space, go look up and kind of keep yourself current on what's happened in the past and what's currently happening in the space. I mean, that's kind of what we exist to bring to your guys' attention, right? Is that there's a lot more going on behind the scenes in this industry as a whole than what the average everyday user of the LLMs quite realizes, right? So we hope that you gain something out of this, being kind of given a fresh perspective or a different perspective in any case. But yeah, go search up some of those things for yourself if you're like, we obviously are advocating that you verify everything yourself too when you're using AI. So do the same. Don't take my word for it. But
awesome. And again, please, you guys know what to do. Please subscribe. Please just like. If you hit any of the buttons here, it means that we grow. And obviously you can tell we care about this problem a little bit more than the companies that we talked about tonight. So if you want to do good for our world, you can move your finger and tap a button. That's all you got to do. And we will continue spreading this message, and we'll continue to push people to platforms like Nova AI that are not stealing your data from you, and they're not selling them out as bundles for advertisers to come in and monetize your life. Like you're some product that they can bid on. We believe in safe AI, the promise that was made by OpenAI that was never kept. And we want to follow that through and show the world that we can correct what we've incorrectly done. And at some point, this race, this infinite climbing of the ladder between Google, Anthropic, OpenAI, it's going to eventually hit a point where something happens, either like a event, right? Like they're saying maybe like the end of the world event, right? Or it's just something that realizes that they can't build anything more than what they've built. They have to stop at some point. And nobody cares about Tung Tung Saur being in a animated video that Gemini can create. Like a lot of this stuff isn't meaningful for the average person. So if they outpace the world too much, people are going to have no reason to care. And I think that is kind of my hope, is that they think they're doing so much when in reality, the average person probably doesn't need half the stuff that they've came out with. They don't need ChatGPT 5's operator mode or anything like that. And if we can stick it to these AI companies and show them that, what you're making is cool, but we prefer the way humans do things. And that comes from an AI, creator here. I think that would make the world a much better place. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you in the next episode. I'll be back. And obviously go check out Altura, Altura society.com. Type it in right now. You can download the app from the App Store, get on, and then obviously wait for Altura AI using Nova, right, to come out, and we'll use that as our AI product. You can also use it inside of Altura as well. What you got? Anything else?
Yeah, I just encourage you guys to download the app. It's free. Go check out all the stuff we got going on in the marketplace. I mean, it's really cool. I mean, we talked a lot about its features in previous podcasts. I won't bore you, but there's tons to check out. And if nothing else, you can use Nova, the AI we referenced many times in this podcast, through the Altura Society app as well. So go check it out.
I'm Caleb. This is Anthony here, and that was Ascended. We'll see you next week.